Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos is Parshat Vayeira. In Vayeira, we have the famous story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the destruction of the terrible city. In the city, the people were evil. They were evil to each other, and they ultimately would not allow each other to have any other guests, among many other terrible acts. And so Lot is living in this city, and the city's about to be destroyed. So God sends two angels. One to save Lot because he's Abraham's nephew, and the other is ultimately family. Even though Lot himself had some qualities, the rest of his family were more like the Sodomites. And the other one was to destroy Sodom. Abraham cries on behalf of Sodom. He says, if there's 50 tzaddikim there, if there's 40 righteous people, if there's 30 righteous people, if there's 20 righteous people, all the way down until 10 righteous people. Because if his nephew and his nephew's wife and two of his son-in-laws, and there wasn't a number of other individuals there, he says, let it be destroyed. And so what happens is the angels come there, and they tell Lot that Sodom is going to be destroyed. Lot invites him into their house. Right away, he's very afraid. He wants them to keep on their shoes that looks like they're dirty, like they just walked in, because you're not allowed to sleep overnight in Sodom. Lot's wife doesn't like the fact that he has guests over, and so what she does is he asks her to make soup. She makes a big vat of soup, but she puts so much salt into the soup that it's not edible. Anyways, the angels are eating it, and as they leave Sodom, they're running away from Sodom, and the angel tells Lot's family, do not turn back. And the reason, do not look back, because you are in the same plight. You shouldn't be looking back of Sodom being destroyed. And the famous story is that Lot's wife turns her head back, and because of that, she becomes a pillar of salt. If you drive down to the Dead Sea, and you go on the 90, I believe it is, the highway on the way to the Dead Sea from Jerusalem, there's a famous pillar and says, this is Lot's wife. Well, we highly doubt that that's Lot's wife, but it is in the same area, the area of the Dead Sea. And so why did she turn into salt? Yes, she was punished because she put too much salt in the soup, but is that a real good reason to turn someone into salt? Because you never see people get punished in any other ways. All of a sudden, God turns her into salt. And the answer is a very deep idea about salt. And that salt, on its own, is terrible. It's not edible. You can't do anything with it on its own. But when you add it to food, it's delicious. If you put too much of it, it gets terrible. It becomes too salty, not edible. And this was the unique thing that God was teaching us by turning her into salt. It was that we have tremendous energy, we have tremendous power, and that power is we have to be able to help others, we have to be able to be involved in community. On our own, we can't survive. And this was the idea of what he was teaching, because the Sodom was all about being on your own. You weren't allowed to be involved. There was no community. You weren't allowed to invite guests. You weren't allowed to visit anyone. And so by turning her into salt was teaching her that on our own, it's bitter. But when we join together, that is when we have our great success. Nevertheless, there's also a limit. We have to be able to have community work, but we can't just be community and forget about our family. And so that's the balance that we have to have in life. And therefore, God was teaching the daughters and Lot a lesson. You went and secluded yourself from Abraham because you couldn't get along with him. You don't have to live totally alone and not have any guests to be able to get along. You can still have your space, but still you have to be a part of a community. And it teaches us the power of a community, the strength of a community. As we go into the Shabbos, we hope that you'll join our community. The Shabbos, we start earlier. The clock turns earlier, 6 p.m. We'll have services here tomorrow morning, 10:15. We have our Friendsgiving Shabbat dinner tonight as we welcome the Thanksgiving holiday in 2 weeks. Tonight, we're going to celebrate it with friends because we're going to take tonight with our community, and then Thanksgiving we'll spend with our family. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow morning.